For our next section, we're going to be doing some needle sculpting in order to create sockets for our eyes. Now, you could just leave them as they are, but it looks a little bit like an alien to me. Now, what needle sculpting is supposed to do is you're going to use hidden stitches inside the head to make the eyes do that, so that it just goes into the head a little bit, so you create a bit of a socket and a little bit of a brow here, a nose bridge between the two eyes. So to do that, we first need to mark off a few spots. Point number 1 is underneath the muzzle, over there. Point number 2 is by the right hand eye on the left hand side, touching the eye. Over here. Point number 3 is on the other side of the eye, also touching the eye. Point number 4 is a little bit to the left of point number 1, underneath the muzzle. Point number 5 is by the left eye on the right hand side, touching the eye. And point number 6 is on the left hand side of the eye, like that. So you want to mark these spots for yourself. You are going to follow between them. In the PDF pattern there is a diagram that illustrates with arrows which direction you need to move in. When I work, I'll be removing these pins to make it simpler for myself to get the needle through. You will need a giant needle. I bought myself a set of upholstery needles that come in different sizes. You want a nice big needle in order to do this, so that you can go through whichever body parts you need to go through. I also have my shears ready to cut when I'm done, and oddly enough, a small pliers, because sometimes you'll find that this needle actually gets stuck as you are working through, and you just need the extra grip that one of these pliers can provide you with in order to pull the needle through as you should. So we will be doing that next. Okay, we are now going to begin the needle sculpting. When we start, we are going to enter by point 1 here. We're going to exit by point 2, enter by point 3, exit by point 1, and then we're going to pull tight. We're then going to move to enter at point 4, exit at point 5, enter at point 6, exit back at point 4, and pull tight. Now, like I said, you do have a photo of these positions in your PDF pattern so that you don't get lost, but for myself I am going to remove the pins because I find that they get in my way when I'm working with a needle. So I put them to the side. But if you want a reminder, go check your pattern. So we go in at point 1 and out at point 2, right next to the eye there, as you can see. We then push the needle through and we pull our yarn, but we want to leave a yarn tail hanging down on the outside here, like that. So make sure that you don't pull it through all the way. We are now going to go in at point 3, right next to the eye, and come back out at point 1 where we originally started. There we go. To pull our needle with our yarn all the way through. Now you'll see that it seems to have made a big stitch across the black eye. We want to just move that stitch to the bottom of the eye as we are pulling tight. So we're taking both ends, the long end and the short end, holding on and just pulling tight. You see, as we pull tight, the stitch actually disappears underneath the black eye and you can't see it anymore. But you'll also see that this eye has now dented in a little bit where this eye hasn't yet. And that's exactly the effect we want to create. We now go in at point 4, which is just next to point 1, and we're going to come out right next to the left eye at point 5. Can be a little bit tricky to maneuver because the backs of your safety eyes are in the way on the inside. It just takes a little bit of patience. There we go. We're going to go in at point 6, again right next to the eye, so that we can come back out again at point 4 at the bottom. Like that. Go. And again, you see that the stitch forms over the eye there. We just move it to the bottom and pull tight, and you just keep pulling tight until it disappears underneath your black eye. There we go. And you'll see that both of the eyes have now indented a little bit, and we're starting to get a bit of a bridge here. If you look from the top, they're starting to go closer to each other. I like a little bit more of an indentation, so I'm going to repeat this whole process again, starting from point 1. To point 2. Point 2 to point 3. Back out at point 1 on the bottom. And pull tight. The only thing you want to make sure of here as you're doing this is you want your eyes to be even. So if you look at it right now, you'll see that this eye on the right hand side is a bit lower than this eye on the left hand side. That's because I've done it twice here and only once here. So you want to make sure that you keep things even and that you pull equally tight. So we're now going to repeat this side as well, from point 4 to point 5. From point 5 to point 6, and from point 6 back down to point 4. Now remember, when you're doing the pulling tight, you want to keep your eyes even. Sometimes your stitch will be a little bit stubborn. You can just help it along with your needle to make it go down. There we go. Okay, so pulling tight on the last part. As you can see again, this one's now tighter than that one, so just take the short end and pull tight on that. And you'll see that that has now evened out my teddy bear eyes, so that they are now evenly sunken in. And you can see that that just creates a little bit of an eye socket and a little bit of a nose bridge here, which just makes the toy a touch more attractive. Now at this point we need to tie off, so we want to get our two ends to go to the same place. So I just go back in again and out a random spot on the head. Pull my yarn tail through. I'm going to do the same with a shorter yarn tail that I've got. If you want more of an indentation than you've got at the moment, you're most welcome to repeat the route a third time. Each time you repeat it, the eyes will sink in deeper, than they have before. So it's up to you to decide when it's deep enough for you. And there we go, both yarn tails are coming out of the same hole now. So we can tie them off. And also very important, notice I used the same color as my main color and the same yarn to do this with. Cut it off short. And once again, you just want to push that knot into the hole that you were coming out of there, so that it disappears. And there we go. We didn't even need our pliers for this one. But now we've got a nicely sculpted eye socket on either side, and we are ready to start embroidering our facial features. In this section we will be embroidering our nose, our eyebrows and our eyelashes. We'll be using a fairly big needle, but not as gigantic as the one for the sculpting, and a length of black chunky yarn. We'll start by pinning out the position of the nose. Now the nose is going to go on the muzzle. I put my first pin in the corner of the right eye, my second pin in the corner of the left eye. It's important to make sure that you've got them the same distance. If you look from the top here versus the eye, you'll see that this one's a little bit closer to the eye than this one, so I just need to move it a little bit that way. There we go, so that's nice and even. We are then going to centralize between the two for our third pin to create a triangle. Our fourth and final pin is going in at the bottom, in between where point 1 and point 4 had been when you were doing the facial sculpting. So this is what you want to create with your pins at this point to embroider the nose. Now we're going to start at a random spot in the head to go in, and we're going to come out at this pin here. So we can take that pin out once our needle is through. Pull through our black yarn, but we do want to leave a tail hanging over here for tying off later on. We are then going to go into the middle pin, and we're going to come out by this pin here. Take both of those pins out. Folding back down to this spot and coming out where we started there. You see, this time our stitches are created on the outside of the head, whereas with the needle sculpting they are on the inside of the head. We're then going to create a cross stitch going through that way. And at this point you should have a nice triangle outline happening on your muzzle like that. Just double check that you've spaced it neatly and centrally before you carry on. We are now going to work a whole lot of stitches from the top to the bottom, top to the bottom. We're going to go all along this line, but every time we're going to enter at the bottom here. So we do our first stitch like that. and our second stitch is a little bit to the right. And with each stitch that we do, we are going to be moving a bit to the right. Now you want to pull tight enough for the yarn to lie flat on the muzzle, but not so tight that you start changing the shape of the muzzle. You can see the ivory colour is still showing through, but we're basically starting to colour in our triangle with black yarn. As we go along bit by bit. Once you reach the edge, we're going to work back towards that direction. This time you want to make sure that your needle comes out at the top, just in between where you've got your white spaces. So you want to make sure that you are actually covering them up nicely. You can see with the second time around you're starting to fill in a lot more, and less of the ivory will become visible as you carry on. I use quite a long piece of black yarn because I don't like running out halfway through and having to add on a new piece. But it's not the end of the world if you do. If you find that your yarn is getting short, you just work through so that you come out there, tie off, and add in a new piece of yarn to carry on with. In the same way that we added this black yarn. So we're really starting to make progress now. As you can see, our nose is filling in nicely. Now, if you have any gaps left anywhere, like I've got a tiny gap there and a tiny gap there, where I can still see the ivory yarn coming through, you just keep making stitches in the spots where you need them until you've got it covered and you've got a nice solid black nose happening. At the end, when you're happy, you want to make sure that you come back out in one of the corners, either on that side or on that side, doesn't matter which one, as long as you are right on the corner. Now you can see as we've been working, this top line has become very uneven. So what I do is I do a last stitch, which I'm going to just go across there. There we go. So when it gets a bit tough, that's when you need the pliers to just help you pull through that last little piece. And There we go, we've got a nice little nose happening here. The next thing we're going to want to do is to split our muzzle in half. So we want to go in at this point, and we're going to want to come out at this bottom point that we have marked off here. You want to make sure that this is in the middle and aligned with the bottom tip of your nose before you do it. So I'm just going to pull the spin out of my way. Go in by the tip of the nose, bend the body back, and come out at the bottom there. Okay, we're now going to make a big stitch here where we work between the point where we're coming out now and that center. So we're going back into the center and coming out in the same spot here at the bottom, so that we can make a big black stitch on the outside like that. So you've now split your muzzle into two. Make sure that you've got it nicely in the middle, and then pull tight. As you pull tight, you'll see that these sides start rounding a little bit and your nose position changes a bit. I like to repeat this stitch a second time. Okay. Tight. Once you're happy with the result, you can just go in at the tip again, and this time you want to come out here where your starting end is. Make sure it's through the same holes so that it's easy to tie off and hide away the ends. There we go. All that's left is to tie off. Cut the ends. And then we want to push this knot into the head. Because it's black, it can sometimes show, so I like to really just make sure it goes away. There we go. And now we've got a nice nose happening there. We've got the muzzle split into two parts, and our little alien is starting to look more and more like a little bear instead. There we go. Next we will be creating our eyebrows and our eyelashes. Once again, we're going to pin out the right positions for them. So we start off by counting 1, 2, 3 rows up, and just to the left hand side of the right eye we put our first pin. Our second pin is going by the left eye. Again, 1, 2, 3 rounds up, and just a little bit to the right of the eye. So you want it just above the corner of the eyes, as we've got it there. Then for your next pin, starting here, we're going to count 1, 2 stitches to the right. We're going to do the same on the other side, but this time we count 1, 2 stitches to the left. Your third pin, starting here, you go down 1 row, and then you go 1, 2 stitches to your right. We're going to repeat that here, down 1 row, 1, 2 stitches to your left. Make sure that your spacing is nice and even when you check it from all directions. That's where your eyebrows will be going. For your eyelashes, you want to go in the inside corner of the eye, right next to the eye, there. You want to do the same inside corner for your other eye, so that you've marked them. You're going to be working around the eye and one stitch to the right here. On the same level, it's going to be around the eye and one stitch to the left. You want to again make sure that your distances are indeed even. There we go. So our pink pins will be our eyebrows and our green pins will be our eyelashes. We once again need a piece of black yarn on our needle. We're going to pick a random spot to go in, and we're going to come out at this pin here. Once your needle's in the right spot, you can take the pin out. Important, leave a tail dangling for tying off later. We're then going to go in by this third pin here and come out by the second pin. So you want to go in here and out there. In, out. You can remove those pins. Now you can see it makes a straight line over here. So what I do now is I'm going to make a little stitch across this. So the yarn's at the top at the moment, so I'm going to go below. So I'm going under that, and in that exact same spot that I came out of, and my needle's going to come out here. At this point there. Now there's also a diagram in the PDF pattern if you want to keep track of which spots to use. They're all nicely numbered and you've got a step-by-step explanation. You can see as I pull tight, our straight stitch starts to become a curved stitch. We are then going to repeat that on the left hand side. So we're going to go in by the outside, and we're going to come out here where our middle point's going to be. And then we're going to do our little stitch by going under and in the same spot, but this time we are going to come out by this pin over here, which is the corner of the eye. Can be a little bit sticky at this point. Pliers just give you that extra grip that you need to pull it through. There we go. That completes our eyebrows. We are now going to make our eyelashes. We want the yarn to go around the black of the eye. We're going to go in at this corner of the eye point, and we're going to come out there. So, like that. You want to keep the stitch on top of the eye as you pull it a little bit tighter, so that the stitch actually follows the eye and to the corner. You're then going to do the same on this side, except when you come out, you're going to come out at your starting point, where you will be able to tie off. Again, make sure that it goes around the eye and create a little corner. There we go. All we need to do now is tie our yarn off. center and hide our knot inside the head by pushing it in. And there we have it. We've got our nose, we've got our muzzle split, we've got our eyebrows, and we've got our eyelashes embroidered on. At this point you can put your head and body to the side, and we will be working on making the ears for the next section.